the lantern of sincerity in the ancient deserts of Arabia. Long before cities rose and empires fell, there lived a young man named Harith, even known among his tribe for his strength and fierce bravery. Yet within his heart, Harith carried a restlessness he could never understand. He would gaze at the stars at night, watching them scatter like pearls across the sky, and wonder why his heart felt empty like a vessel that had lost its purpose. One winter night, as cold winds moved like whispers through the dark valleys, Harith sat near the fire beside an old traveler. The man's beard was white like desert moonlight, and his eyes glowed with a calm wisdom. When Harith mentioned the uncertainty in his heart, the old man said softly, "My son, there is a hadith of the Prophet that says, Allah does not look at your bodies or your wealth, but He looks at your heart and deeds. A man's worth is not what he shows the world, but what he holds with sincerity." Those words struck Harith like an arrow of truth. All his life, he had cared about bravery, strength, and reputation. But had he ever asked whether Allah was pleased with him? Harith embarked on a journey to seek scholars and righteous men so he could learn more about the teachings of the Prophet. His first stop was the town of Kaaba, where he found a scholar named Sheikh Salman, known for his humility. Harith sat before him and asked, "Master, how can a man purify his heart?" The Sheikh replied, "Purification begins with honesty before Allah. There is a hadith that tells of 3 men trapped in a cave, and each one was saved only by mentioning a deed they did purely for Allah alone. This teaches us that a sincere act is a light that saves even in the darkest places. Purify your intentions, and Allah will purify your path." Harith pondered deeply on this. He had done brave deeds, yes, but which of them were for Allah alone? During his travels, Harith passed through famine-stricken villages. One day he saw a widow and her 3 children sitting by the ruins of a collapsed house. They were hungry, exhausted, and trembling from the cold desert wind. Harith felt pity, but also hesitation. His tribe valued wealth as honor, and he had very little with him. But he remembered the hadith. The most beloved people to Allah are those who bring benefit to others. So he dismounted, gave them his food, and even slaughtered his only goat to feed them. The widow's eyes filled with tears. "May Allah reward you with goodness," she whispered. Harith walked away before they could say more, feeling as though a veil had lifted from his heart. For once, he had done something expecting nothing in return. Yet his journey was far from complete. Weeks later, Harith arrived in a bustling marketplace where merchants exchanged goods from faraway lands. There he met a young servant crying by a broken jar. "My master will beat me," the boy sobbed. This jar was precious. Harith, remembering another hadith, "Show mercy to the people on earth, and the one in the heavens will show mercy to you," approached the merchant. He offered to pay the price of the jar, even though it cost nearly all the gold Harith had left. The merchant agreed. As the servant boy wiped his eyes, Harith placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Do not fear. Allah sees the innocent and the oppressed." The boy hugged him and whispered, "You are the first man to show me mercy." Harith continued his journey. Now with an even lighter heart but an empty purse, he traveled through storms, scorching winds, and lonely nights. One night, harsh winds forced him to take shelter in a mountain cave. As thunder roared outside, he noticed a frail old man lying near death. Harith had barely a sip left, but he remembered another teaching. None of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. Without hesitation, he pressed the water skin to the old man's lips. The man drank, sighed in relief, and prayed for Harith. Soon after, the old man passed away, and Harith buried him with dignity, reciting prayers he had learned along his journey. In that lonely cave, Harith realized something extraordinary. Though his wealth and strength had faded, his heart had become richer than he ever imagined. When the storm cleared, Harith resumed his journey toward Medina, eager to visit the sacred city and learn more about the teachings of the Prophet, though the Prophet had already returned to Allah. As Harith entered the city, people hurried through the streets, preparing for prayer. He joined them at the mosque. Listening to the Imam recite Qur'an, his heart trembled. This was the peace he had searched for all his life. After the prayer, Harith confessed to a scholar nearby, "Master, I traveled deserts and mountains seeking knowledge, but I found truth only when I acted sincerely." The scholar smiled and replied, "This is because sincerity is the lantern that illuminates the soul." The Prophet said that on the day of judgment, the sincere will be under the shade of Allah's throne. When you acted without seeking fame, reward, or reputation, your heart began to awaken. Tears filled Harith's eyes, not of sadness, but of relief. He had finally found what he had longed for: closeness to Allah. Harith spent the rest of his life helping travelers, feeding the poor, and teaching sincerity to those burdened by pride. Whenever people praised him, he would say, I am only a man who once walked in darkness. Allah guided me with a lantern called Sincerity, and so his name was remembered not for his strength, not for his wealth, but for the purity of his heart that Allah himself had seen and accepted.